Guys, let's start with this thing. In this part of this whole course, we're going to talk about resumes and how to create a really powerful resume. A resume that could, pass not just a human review, but also software, automated tracking software reviews as well. So let's start with this thing. Now, in order to succeed, your resume needs to be powerful and persuasive enough, and it should obviously, pass both, as I've said, human and software reviews, right? So let's see what happens, right? So first, when let's say your resume reaches the recruiter, obviously the presentation of as to how your resume is present, what kind of things it shows and what kind of things it tells to the recruiter, that thing matters obviously. Even with internal referrals or automated systems, employers still require resume, making it essential to present yourself effectively on paper or PDF, which is that's probably the document that most people are going to send. Now here's the thing: a lot of people also, like I've seen, they make their resume in like a Word document or some other format. A PDF, that's the best, because in this case you don't have to let's say if accidentally they delete everything in a Word document, then your resume would be lost in their system, right? So what you need to do is set it into a PDF, that way it remains with them. But other than that, whatever is the system, even if you do this by referral or anything, or I don't know, somebody in the company or something, you still need to give your resume, because at the end of the day, that would have all your details, all your high level information, and that's something that will help them to make decision, right? So I've already said before, average recruiter is going to spend around, let's say, 6 to 10 seconds on your resume. So what's important is that you need to make sure that within those 6 to 10 seconds you impress them, and that's a very difficult task, I can understand, but with correct strategy, it's not that difficult as you think. Okay, now, automated tracking software. Obviously these software do multiple things. First, obviously, when you submit your resume, it's going to parse your resume and extract relevant information. So it's going to take out your experience, your education, some of the skills, I don't know, your email, your phone number, and other things. But on top of that, the other thing that it's going to do is basically it's going to find some relevant keywords that the recruiter might be looking for. So basically, this would be this would help the recruiter to understand where people stand, in terms of, let's say, a whole spectrum as to like somebody most qualified versus somebody least qualified. It would help it would help them to understand where does your resume stands in that spectrum. Now, if you have a lot of keywords, or your resume has the things that the recruiter is exactly looking for, and let's say if that recruiter has kept a software like automated tracking software, then in that case you would be one of those strong candidates, right? Because you have those things already. So one of the things that I personally like to do is I like to use something like a word cloud. So you guys can see, search it by yourself. Like, there are lots of software already free available, and in here you need to, I believe, go somewhere here, extract word from text or PDF, whatever you want, and in here you can paste whatever you want. So let me just apply this, and you'll see that this is a word cloud. It would show some of the words that are the most important, that are reflected, which have been which have been basically discussed more. So what you need to do is, let's say if you have a resume, let me open my resume. Although this resume that I'm about to open, I haven't edited that and made it the most optimized, because this is just to show you guys. And here I need to go and click on extract words from text and paste all your text and click on apply. Now when you do this, it's going to form this whole word cloud, and you can, by the way, make different shapes as you want. For example, you can make I don't know, something like this, I guess. So yeah, now you're able to see this cloud, and this would show some of the highly used words. For example, something like neural network, as you can see in here, machine learning. So you can see learning, you can see data, TensorFlow, pipeline, models, classification, GCP, Canada. So you could see SageMaker, performing, hyperparameters. Like, all of these words that you see here are used a lot in my resume, and that's the reason whenever, let's say, this thing would go to a automated tracking software, it would find a high relevance for these things. So if your recruiter is looking for these things, then in that case, that recruiter obviously would be impressed, because the thing that they are exactly looking for, it's present here, right? So you can do this thing, for your case as well. Cool. So yeah, relevant for automated tracking software. It's a tool that's used by HR departments usually in most of the companies. Now, let's say if the company is small, then they may not have any software like this, but usually, the bigger companies, they would always have a software like this. Your resume will often be scanned and analyzed by these software, which will break it down into data that will be used for evaluation. Contain the right keywords to pass the ATS filter and become a strong candidate. The things that I've already said, right? Now, this is a photo I found you can literally search on Google and you can see this thing. And this is something that I have personally done when I created my resume, and that has helped me. Basically, these are, as you can see, these are the areas where the recruiters looks for. These are the focus points, bolded keywords, your education, like the place and company you've worked at, your name, and your executive, your summary. This summary, I believe, it's one of the one of the most powerful things of your resume. The reason being, I'll tell you my personal story, and this is something that I've seen personally many times in my life. When I was applying for jobs, and when I had almost 1 year, less than 1 year experience, at that time I was getting interviews for senior position, senior machine learning engineer. And a lot of this time, after getting the interview, the interviewer would realize, oh, this guy doesn't know anything because he just has 1 year experience. The reason I was getting them is because in my executive summary in here, it was saying I had 4 years experience. The way in which obviously I was calculating that was adding my other academic experience, and then combining all that, and I was saying I had 4 years of experience. Obviously that's a little bit of exaggeration, but that was how I was trying to justify what I was saying in here. But that thing was so powerful that I kept on getting interviews from higher, from the companies that required more experience. So you could see how powerful this thing is. So in here, you need to make sure that you add all those things, your experience, your certifications, some of the big brands that you work with, your personal achievements. Let's say you have done 5,000 questions on LeetCode. Anything that would make you stand out in comparison to others. There would always be people who would have done lots of GitHub projects, and they would have built some portfolio and stuff. But things that would make you stand out are your personal achievements. Basically, things like you have impacted in some company and made them, I don't know, $1 million, for example, something like that. Or your certifications. That's something that would help you acquire better certifications, right? In cloud technologies. Anything. Let's say if you have a really good LinkedIn profile, you have got 10,000 or 50,000 followers, that would make you big, right? So mention those things in here and make that company realize that you're not an ordinary person. Basically make yourself stand out. So summary in here, that's a big thing. And then the next part, which is the skills. In the skills, obviously you need to we'll talk about this thing in just a bit, but in general, these skills has to be basically exactly the things that the recruiter is looking for, or kind of something really matching to that. At least we're going to talk about that. But yeah, this is how your resume, this is where they look the most. And if you can mention exactly the things that they're looking for in these places, then obviously there's a really high chance that you'll get an interview, right? Cool. Now, this is the problem, this is the solution, and I'm going to explain, in more details in the coming video about the solution, okay? So, let me explain the exact problem. Oftentimes, candidates would need help, or they would probably not be able to do it by themselves, in explaining their transferable skills and finding evidence that matches the job requirements. Basically, they don't know how to find the exact things that the recruiter is looking for and mention those in their resume. Right, that's the main problem. The problem is obviously in how they frame their presentation, which is basically their resume, their LinkedIn, and their car profile and stuff. Resume is the first point. Obviously, that's the first thing that the recruiters would be looking for. So framing, helps candidates reflect on their experience. Okay, that's one thing. Extract the relevant skills from their experience that would match the job description of that job, and present them effectively to recruiters and HR managers. So this is the thing, right? Now, ensure recruiters and HR manager easily recognize that you have skills that they need. Obviously, they won't act, so that they don't have to act like investigative generalists to dig down for potential for your potential information, right? It's your job to present evidence of your capabilities. It's not their job to find your information. So that's the case. Your resume should be compact, and it should have all the information that they need, and that's something that's going to help you acquire job opportunities, right? So this is the problem, this is the solution, and then I'm going to explain to you in the next video as to how you can work on this solution and how to do this thing. But this is exactly the solution, which is basically finding the relevant and exact things that they are looking for and putting them in your resume, and that would maximize your chances of getting more interview, right? Okay, now what is framing? Framing, which is basically framing your resume for presentation, right? So what is this thing? So basically you need to reflect on your personal, academic, volunteer experience, or any kind of experience that you can get from your past. You need to reflect onto that, and then identify the experience and skills from that experience, from your past, and surround those things around the right language that would produce the highest relevance for that job that you're looking for. Okay, now obviously there's one thing that's important. Like, let's say if you do this thing, obviously you're not going to land every single job that you apply for. You're not going to land an interview in every single job that you apply for, obviously. But let's say if you applied to 15, 20 jobs, then there's a chance that you might get interview in at least one of them. So that's the case. Okay, that's framing.